Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would do a video which was inspired by another booktuber, Charlotte Malloy. And Charlotte did a video where she talked about her favourite Booker nominated books of all time and put together her ideal Booker long list. I will link below to Charlotte's video. I've also seen Scott from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot do his version of this. I will link below to that one as well. So these are the books that I personally would choose on my sort of perfect Booker long list out of all the books that have previously been nominated for the Booker Prize. The Booker dozen, like a baker's dozen, has 13 books, so I have 13 books which I will go through chronologically. Just to note that from about 2001-ish, that was the point that they started to announce the full long list. Prior to that, they only announced the short list. So there are fewer books from the earlier days to choose from. Also, this list is skewed towards books that won in the last sort of 20 years or so, because that's where most of my reading lies. At the end of the list, I will tell you what my personal overall winner would be. See if you can guess what that's going to be as we go through. In total, I have 3 books on this list that did win the Booker Prize, 7 that made the short list, and 3 that only made it as far as the long list. So we're going to kick off with 1989's winner of the prize, and that was The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. So this tells the story of Stephen's butler who is sort of looking back on his life. I love Ishiguro's writing. I love how he explores the nature of memory. I think The Remains of the Day is a really fascinating character study, and it's sort of deceptively, it appears to be a deceptively simple sort of story, but there's so much going on in there, there's so much depth to the novel. I absolutely love it. Next, we're going to jump forward 10 years to 1999's winner, and that is Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee. So this is a book set in South Africa about a sort of middle-aged teacher, professor, college teacher, who embarks on an inappropriate relationship with a student. He is really a very unlikable person. And partway through the book, something traumatic happens to a member of his family, which sort of changes the direction of the book. It looks at race and trauma, and I think the reason I like it is because I really like unlikable characters, and he is definitely one of them. Next, we're going to head to a book that was on the 2002 shortlist, and it's Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. So I love Sarah Waters, and Fingersmith I think is one of her best novels. It's historical fiction set in Victorian London about a young girl who sort of becomes embroiled in a sort of a kind of a criminal gang who are going to swindle a woman out of her fortune. And the reason I love this is because I find it such an immersive book. I think Sarah Waters is a wonderful writer. This is a book that is really, really well plotted, and that is something I always appreciate in a book. I'm quite a plot-driven reader. This has some twists and turns along the way. The characters are so well drawn, and the world really, really comes to life. Next, a book that was on the shortlist in 2003, and it's Notes on a Scandal by Zoe Heller. So this is a book that I read a long time ago, and I am due a reread, I think. This is another one full of quite unlikable characters. There seems to be a theme developing. It's about a female school teacher who is having an inappropriate relationship with a student, and another teacher at the school who's an older woman is quite obsessed with this other female teacher, finds out about this relationship, and it's just full of like horrible people doing horrible things, which I think is probably why I loved it. Now we have another book by Sarah Waters. She does feature on this list twice, and it's a book that was on the 2006 shortlist, and it's The Night Watch. So this is a book set in London in World War II, and what I particularly like about this book is the way that the book is structured and plotted to tell the story in reverse. So it opens up in something like 1947, and we get a whole section of the book set in that year, following this group of characters and sort of their relationships, etc. And then the next section jumps back about 3 years, and then the final section jumps back again about 3 years. And so I thought it was a really effective way of telling that story, because as we go through the book, we start to understand how the characters have ended up where they've ended up, in the relationships they've ended up in with each other at the start of the book. And I thought that was just really, really well done. Next is a book that made the 2007 shortlist, and it's The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Hamid. This is a book I read, I think, last year, and I absolutely loved it. It is about a man who is sitting outside a cafe in Lahore, and this other man who's a stranger to him comes over, starts talking to him, starts telling him his life story, and the man's like thinking to himself, who is this guy, what's going on? It's quite a short book. It has quite a thriller-esque feel, quite a thriller-esque propulsion to the story and how it moves along, which I think is probably particularly why I enjoyed it. And I found it a really enjoyable and engaging read. Next, we are going to a book that was on the shortlist in 2014. And this is another one which I'm due a reread of. This is We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Joy Fowler. And this one's difficult to talk about. So it's about a family. I'm looking at the back to check what I can tell you. So it's about a family, and in particular these two young sisters in the family. So we have Rosemary and we have Fern. And when Rosemary is 5 years old, she's sent away from home to her grandparents. When she comes home, she finds that her sister Fern has gone. And fairly early on in the novel, we find out what that means and what has gone on, which to me was very surprising. And then the story goes and explores some what I thought were really, really fascinating themes, which I can't say what they are because it would be a massive spoiler. But it was just a really surprising read. And again, because I'm such a plot-based reader, I really like a book that gives me something surprising, something that I am not expecting. Next is a book from the 2018 Longlist, and it's The Water Cure by Sophie Mackintosh. So this is about a family, so a mother and father and 3 daughters who live this isolated, remote life on this island. And the daughters have been brought up to believe that the outside world is dangerous to them in some way. And then one day these men sort of wash up on the island and disrupt the family. So I really like this because it was quite dystopic and just quite weird and unsettling. And I have since read more Sophie Mackintosh, and I think she's a really, really great author. Now on to another winner, and this won the 2019 prize, and it's Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. This is another one I need to reread. I absolutely just adored this book when I read it. In this we follow 12 different women in Britain. I think they are all black or mostly black. And what I liked about this was, I think in particular, the way that the story is told and the language that's used. So, I mean, it does that thing that some people really don't like, where it doesn't use proper sentences and, there's not necessarily a capital letter and there isn't, proper punctuation. And it's sort of, the way it's told, it almost starts to edge into feeling a little bit poetic, just in terms of the rhythm and the flow of the language. And that was what I particularly, I love lots of things about this book, but I think that was what I particularly loved about Girl, Woman, Other. Next is a book that made the 2020 Longlist, and it's Love and Other Thought Experiments by Sophie Ward. So this is quite a strange book. It almost but it isn't. Feels like interconnected short stories, but it does have an overall sort of plot, kind of. So we open up with this married couple, 2 women, and one of them thinks an ant has crawled in her ear and is living in her brain, and then her wife obviously like doesn't quite believe her and thinks she's just gone a bit weird. And so we sort of jump around to different settings with some sort of different characters, but they all sort of link through, and it's looking at different philosophies. It is very strange, and I'm not sure that I entirely understood what was going on. I need to read this one as well, actually. But I liked it because it was just a bit mind-bending and weird. Next is a book that made the 2021 shortlist, and it's A Passage North by Anuk Arudpragasam. So this is probably a bit of an anomaly in many ways as one of my favourite books, because it is really quite plotless. It's set in Sri Lanka, and it follows this young man as he is on a train journey. And basically that is the book. But during the journey he reflects on his life, his family past. He's going to a funeral, and so he's thinking about his past, the past of his country, his relationships. What I loved about this one was the writing. I thought the writing was really, really beautiful. It's not something that I am like particularly drawn to, like lovely writing in that way. But I loved it in this book. It just the flow of the language, the rhythm of the language, I thought was absolutely wonderful. Okay, we get into the end. Next is, it's another book that was on that same shortlist from 2021, and it's No One Is Talking About This by Patricia, Lockwood. So this was quite a divisive book. It's partly looking at social media and how people kind of live their lives through obsession with social media. But it's about much more than that. Partway through the novel, something sort of traumatic happens, and then it's about how the characters deal with that. There is a blend in this book between serious stuff and humour, and I think because of the humour within it, that's probably partly why some people don't like it, because humour's such a personal thing. But by the end of the book, and by the time you come to read the author's note, it's a really, really quite a heart-wrenching book that I thought was absolutely brilliant. And then I think we're on to our final book. We're on our final book now. And the final book is one that was on the long list in 2022 and has since gone on to win the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, and it's Trust by Hernan Diaz. So I liked this one because of the way that the book is structured and how the form of the book is used to tell the story. So it's about a really, really like well-off banker and his life. And the first part is told in like a novelisation. It's all fiction. But the first part is like a novel within a novel about him, and then the next part is the draft of his memoir, and then we have another sort of slightly different narrative viewpoint and form, and then a final one at the end. And as we get these different layers to the story, we start to build up sort of a true picture of this character who is, quite unlikable, and a true picture of his character and sort of what's really been going on. So again, with that one, it was probably like the form and how that was used to tell the story that I thought that I particularly enjoyed. So those are my Booker dozen. And then, yes, I did say I would tell you what my personal winner would be. My personal winner out of all those books would be The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. It is a book I absolutely love. I could happily reread that non-stop. It's kind of like a perfect book for me in many ways. So that's what would win my personal Booker award. I'm sure if you would like to have a go at doing this yourself, Charlotte would be very happy for you to do so. Just make sure you credit her with the original idea. Or if you don't have a channel and you just want to let me know in the comments what would make your personal booker long list, I would be really, really interested to know. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye.